All right. So today, what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm attempting to teach you how to use AI in a responsible way to help you answer the question that you started with. This is a question that you originated that's important to you. And so finding an answer that actually you can internalize and actually be able to understand in yourself is kind of where we want to start as we approach this kind of work. Okay, so using AI, first of all, it's really, really new technology. It's been around a couple years now, and of course, students discovered it before teachers. And it's already a factor in how how people work, how adults work, how business works, how education works, and trying to figure out how to use it in the way that's most beneficial for you as a learner is kind of the thing that I've been trying to work on. So this is my first attempt at it. I've never taught students how to do this before, but this is the best that I've got at this point. On this handout, we've got that we're going to be using the AI called magisterium.com. Now, some people have already discovered that, and some people have already attempted to use other AI, and I haven't actually cracked down on that. But what I wanted you to experience is the experience of looking stuff up in books, looking stuff up in other sources on the internet, so that when AI is able to generate an answer, you have a sense of what kind of sources AI is accessing in order to generate its answer. So let's dig in. The first thing is here in Edsby, of course, we used our list of online resources, and some people already discovered that at the very bottom, Catholic Teaching Artificial Intelligence is magisterium.com. So I'm going to go there, and here we are in magisterium.com. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I want you to use this AI. I'd like you to follow all of my instructions, because if something goes wrong and you've been following my instructions, I kind of know how to backtrack and I'll see where my instructions are wrong. If you kind of go off on your own adventure, then my ability to help you is a lot less. Okay, so the first thing you can see here, actually, I'm already signed in. But when you log in, there's going to be some sort of create an account. So I think it's really important that every student creates an account with this website. That's the first thing you're going to do. That's the first instruction on your handout. And the reason why is when you create an account, it remembers all of your searches. It remembers all of your searches. It also actually gives you quite a bit more searches to use. Instead of 10, it gives you 60. I don't want you to use 60. I want you to use 1. But still, that's handy. So here I am. I'm logged in. I've created an account. There's lots of things that you can do with Magisterium, but for our purposes here, you're going to enter your prompt. So if you don't know already, when you're working with an AI, you're actually not doing a Google search, although you could just enter in one word and see what happens. You're actually entering in a prompt that would be like natural language. So it'd be like what the kind of language that you would use in the classroom. This is just in case you don't know, right? And so you just phrase a question or a request just like you would ask somebody else to do something, okay? And because we've been working so hard on our project questions, I think for most of us, the first prompt that you should do is actually you should write in your project question and see how AI deals with it. That's only one step in the process for you to actually learn and grow, but it's actually a really powerful way for you to access the information that's going to help you grow your knowledge. Okay, so I didn't want to do a student's question here because I didn't want to give anybody an easy out. So I'm going to use my question. I discovered a word with my other class recently, and the word is synderesis. Sounds like Cinderella, but I would say, what is the concept of synderesis? Synderesis. And how can understanding that concept, it has to do with conscience and making good moral decisions. So how can understanding that concept, let me fix that. How can understanding that concept help me to make moral decisions? Okay, my question and the answer to that question is not important for you to pay attention to at this point, but I just want you to notice that I'm typing out an entire question and what else? And I'm just phrasing it as if I'm talking to a teacher or I'm talking to a tutor, and I'm just asking the question about that. Okay, so I am going to search that. Boop. Now, as it's thinking, the reason I'm sending you to magisterium.com is because magisterium.com is intended to be a Catholic artificial intelligence large language learning model. So in other words, it's geared towards helping people understand the Catholic perspective on whatever you're asking it about. And what's more is that it actually has scanned the official church teachings, and it's like, if I'm going to explain something like who is God, if you typed in who is God, it would explain it from a Catholic point of view. Okay. And so that's just helpful because, well, for a couple of reasons. But that's just helpful because at least we understand what the AI is thinking about. If you type a question like who is God into ChatGPT, it will give you a very diverse answer. And actually, I think it will probably tell you like from whose perspective it's answering. But there is always the question. It's like if you're asking something about, let's say, baptism. Well, there are different Christian traditions understand the theology of baptism slightly different ways, and in fact, some people misunderstand what baptism is. Some people misunderstand what the Bible is, and so it's pretty easy for ChatGPT to generate an answer that's actually not helping you to understand Catholic studies any better. Okay, so here's the answer that's generated. I've noticed that this is a lot of a concept in theology and philosophy, the innate capacity of every person. I've noticed that it's pretty complicated. So the text that it actually generates is actually pretty complicated, and if I was a grade 10 student, I might not be able to understand all of it. I'm just noticing that now, and I'll show you what I want you to do if you encounter the same thing in a second. But the most important thing about this, and this for me teaching AI, this is the most important thing. And that is when AI generates this sentence, I want to know what's it basing on? What's it basing this on? Can I go and read the same thing? And it's actually even cited its sources. So you can actually look up the Catholic Encyclopedia, which was written in 1913, and you can actually read the actual encyclopedia article that it's based on. That's really helpful. Now, I'm not requiring you to go back and look at that, but this is what I am requiring you of. And this would be something that if you've tuned out, you need to tune back in to pay attention to. This number one, this number two, this number three are all footnotes or codes that refer to what's down here. So let me do that again. I'm at the beginning with my my prompt. And then I'm scrolling down. I'm scrolling down until the end of what it generated, and it still has all these numbers. And then it has references. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take the word references. I'm going to go back to my handout here, but I'd like you to do the same thing on your handout. I asked you to write a line down here in the bottom third of the second page, and I'd like you to write the word references there. References. Okay. So you have this references section in your handout. And I'll go back to my chat here, my AI. And under references, each of these numbers corresponds with one of these sources. And so what I'd like you to do is when you write in your project question, I'd like you to scroll down. I'd like you to turn the page and write out at least some of these references. Okay. I would want to write out at least some of these references on your piece of paper. Now, some of them are going to be like, you don't know really what it comes from. Disputed questions on truth, Q16A2C / Thomas Aquinas. You don't know what that means. I know what it means, but I'm going to ask you to write it down to start with. Rather than having to go and look it up, if you click on it, it actually does show you exactly what St. Thomas Aquinas wrote. I'm not actually asking you to do that, but you can. Okay. What I am asking you to do is to write out maybe not all of them. If this was the work of a student, I would say if you wrote out the first 3, that would be fine. The other way that you can think about it is when you're reading this, maybe some of it helps you with your concept, with your question, and some of it doesn't. If I take a look here, number 6, it's only referenced here. Oh, and it's also referenced here. So I might not need that number 6. But if I take a look at number 1 is here and here and here and here and here and here. So I should definitely write down number 1. Okay. Does anybody know what CCC stands for? It stands for the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which I've talked about a lot. So I'm guessing most of you will see a reference with CCC. Because it's CCC and then just a 4-digit number, it's really easy to write down, and I think you should write that down. Okay. The other ones, it's good to write them down, but you probably don't need to write down all of them. Okay, so the first thing I've done is I've made an account, or I've gone to magisterium.com, I've made an account, I've typed out my project question as a prompt. Before I read it, I want to scroll down. Actually, no. Yes. I want you to write out a few references here. And then you're going to read through it, and I'm going to invite you to take notes. Back here, take notes on this handout. It says, take notes on information from the AI-generated answer, which is relevant to your project question. Sorry, I missed something. I also want you to write down exactly what you typed in, to magisterium.com. Last point. You're taking notes from these points and writing them down in your notes. Sorry, 2 last points. The first one is I told you that this is really a complicated explanation. It's got all the information in one place, which is really helpful, but it's actually written in a way that I can't really understand. So I could say, as a follow-up, I would say, please explain this for a grade 10 reader. I could also say, please explain this for someone at English level A1.1. So A1.1 is someone who's just beginning to learn the English language. I'm going to see what it does with that. So it's going to use very, very simple language to try to explain the same thing. And now it's saying, synderesis is like a small voice inside you. This voice helps you to know what is good and what is bad. Okay, that's a lot easier for me to understand. So the great thing about AI is if you're reading it and you're not understanding it, you can ask it to make it simpler. You can also ask to make it more detailed or more in-depth, or to go into one thing in particular. You can do a whole bunch of things. But at this point, you can do it to use it to make it more simple. Okay, the last thing, last thing is I'm going to start a new chat. And sometimes students have questions that are not looking for the Catholic point of view, or they're about other religions. And I don't know how good Magisterium is for that. For those, you might want to use ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot. You might want to use a different one if your question is really having nothing to do or looking beyond the Catholic perspective. But I might ask, this is one student's question, what does the Quran, which is the Muslim holy book, say about Jesus? So I don't know how this is going to work. What does the Quran say about Jesus? Okay. So besides the Catholic documents, magisterium.com also accesses other sources. Okay. And so this question has nothing to do with Catholicism, but it's actually answering. Oh, okay. Eight. Awesome. So it's actually referencing, so it's telling me everything that the Quran actually says, but the references are to Catholic things that actually are referring to it. So for me as a Catholic studies teacher, I find that helpful, because if I'm trying to teach or learn about Jesus considered a prophet of God, I want to know, what does that say in what does that say in the Catechism of the Council of Trent? Right? What does Catholicism say about this idea in Islam? Okay, so that's helpful for me, but it's probably not necessary for most of your topics. I guess what I want to illustrate is you can search other things in magisterium.com to see what it comes up with. It still has the same knowledge that ChatGPT and Google Gemini have. It's always going to refer to what are some Catholic documents that are in reference to, for example, in this case, Islam, right? So you can still use magisterium.com. However, if you feel like it's not helpful for you and you don't have a Catholic question about a Catholic topic, then you have permission to use other AI sites. Okay. Awesome. Does anybody have any questions that I missed?